I remember when I first bought the piano. It was a little while after I moved out of my girlfriend's place. We had kind of a messy breakup, and it hit me harder than I wanted to admit. Playing piano was always a stress reliever for me, even though nowadays I just didn't have time to do it. I saw it for sale at an auction. Apparently the previous owner, who was a very accomplished piano player, had simply vanished one night, without a trace, and was never found. All of her belongings were still there, including her piano. I don't know how much of it I believed, and it was probably just a way for them to drive the price up for the piano higher. But regardless, I ended up walking away with it for what I felt was a reasonable price, given the condition it was in. When I finally got it home, I tested out the keys. It still sounded good. In tune, which was a surprise. Of course, I didn't have time to actually play it then. I had work in the morning and would have to wake up early. That night, though, I could have sworn I heard some keys being pressed on the piano in the middle of the night. But I chalked it up to me dreaming or something. The next day I actually had some time to play. Since it had been quite some time since I'd actually been able to play the piano, I started off by warming up, doing my scales and things. All the exercises I wouldn't do back when I actually took lessons. But still, it was relaxing to play again. I felt my fingers slip into place and muscle memory kick in as I tried to play some of the songs I still remembered, including one from an old play that I saw once that I particularly liked. After a while, I had to stop playing, of course, and attend to real-life matters. As I was loading the dishwasher in the other room, though, I could have sworn I heard the piano playing by itself again. This time, it was playing the song that I was just playing earlier. Once again, I chalked it up to me hearing things. Or maybe the piano tune was still ringing in my ears, since it had been so long since I've played. The next few days were the same. I tried to squeeze in time to practice. Improvement was coming slow, and it was beginning to get somewhat discouraging. Plus, I was still dealing with emotions from the breakup. Sitting at the piano one night, I began to half-heartedly play the melody to the song from the play. When all of a sudden, the piano began playing the harmony on its own. I glanced to my left and saw that the keys were depressing themselves, playing notes as if being pressed by invisible fingers. I jumped back and stood in front of the piano for a moment in silence. Did I really just see that? Could I be imagining things this whole time? This just wasn't possible. There was no way. I had to check. I slowly reached out and pressed some keys on the piano. After a few presses, sure enough, some keys on the left side began to play on their own in harmony with the keys I was playing. I freaked out and called the auctioneer who had sold the piano, the guy who seemed to have some background information about it. I began asking questions about the piano, about the previous owner, not telling him exactly what happened, because he'd obviously think I was crazy. Hey, I'm just calling about the piano I got at your auction. Yes, of course, a fine piece. What can I do for you? I was just a little curious about its previous owner. It's such a nice piano that I'd like to have a cool story to tell friends when they ask about it. What a lame-ass excuse that was. Oh, sure, I get it. It was owned by a pretty successful piano player and teacher. Elena Kennedy, I believe her name was. Never met her personally. She played in front of plenty of audiences. A real talented girl, from what I hear. She got that piano, funny enough, at an auction as well. Short time later, she up and disappeared. No one knows what happened to her. If I had to guess, she ran away with some guy or maybe went crazy and dropped off the map. You know these music types. You can't ever predict them. Sure, I said. Anyways, the piano ended up at this auction house a few years later where it sat till you came and got it. Pretty decent story. Yeah, I said softly. So, no one has owned it before me? Besides this Elena Kennedy? No, sir, you are the first. Okay, thanks. I appreciate the help. I hung up the phone. I didn't know what to think. Was my piano haunted or something? I got ready for bed, my thoughts and theories about the mysterious instrument spiraling in my head as I drifted off to sleep. I called out of work the next day. I stood in front of the piano again, just sort of staring at it. After what seemed like such a long time of just staring at the piano in silence, I almost jumped out of my skin when it began playing a few notes by itself. I froze. A few seconds later, it played a few more notes, a little louder. Then it hammered on the first key a few times, like it was trying to communicate with me or something. Or, no way. I cautiously crept up closer to the piano. I slowly played the key that the piano was playing on its own to match it. Then the next key, and then the next, until I realized this was the song I never mastered. The piano, or whatever being was inside of the piano, was teaching me how to play the song. I began to play along with the notes. Whenever I'd mess up, the piano would play that section over and over slowly, trying to get me to see how to play it. It was surreal. That evening, I looked up Elena Kennedy and found some articles about her. She apparently was a local, became pretty established as a musician and teacher before her mysterious disappearance. She was applauded as being kind and generous, treated her students kindly, and always performed incredibly in front of an audience. What was shocking to me was there were no leads at all as far as her disappearance. No evidence, no nothing. Everyone was equally shocked when it happened, leading many to believe that she had been kidnapped, or maybe killed and buried or dumped somewhere. But there was no evidence to support that theory either. Others, like the auctioneer, believed she ran away with some guy to start a new life in another country, or maybe committed suicide in a remote area. But her family and friends denied those theories, saying it just wouldn't match her personality to do such things. Was this the being that was in my piano? Was my piano being haunted by the ghost of Elena Kennedy? As the days passed, I started to get less and less freaked out by the fact that my piano would play itself. It wouldn't play itself in the middle of the night anymore. It would only play when I was there. And even then, usually only when I was sitting there. She was trying to teach me how to finish playing the song I gave up on. I would carve out an hour or two after work every day for these lessons. And it wasn't long before I was playing it fairly smoothly. And I really thought I heard clapping when I played the section, but that was probably in my head. I felt good. I felt like I accomplished something. And I had my creepy piano teacher ghost friend to thank for it. After that, it became much more common to me to hear the piano playing on its own. I'd be in the kitchen making dinner or reading on the couch, and the piano would be playing some soft, pleasant tune on its own. I'd know if it was just Elena, or Ellie, as I ended up calling her, playing whatever piece she felt fit the moment. Sometimes, when I had trouble sleeping, I would hear a soft tune coming from the piano, and it would lull me to sleep. There were even times where I would get home from work and just sit on the couch with my eyes closed, listening to the peaceful songs. I would still play regularly too, and I felt myself getting better and better. Often, Ellie would jump in and do the accompaniment to the song I was playing, making it sound even better. Life kept getting better for me after that. And it wasn't long before I found a new job with higher pay a few hours away in the same town as my new girlfriend. This meant, however, that I would need to move into a smaller apartment. I couldn't take the piano with me. I think Ellie knew what was going on. I would come home and hear melancholy pieces being played. Sadder tunes. Very different than the upbeat, calming, and inspirational songs she'd usually play. And slowly but surely, the songs stopped being played altogether. Days would go by and I wouldn't hear any music coming from the piano. I would play a piece to try to get Ellie to jump in and do harmony, but she wouldn't. It just felt like a normal piano. About a week before I was supposed to get rid of the big items like the couch and the piano and finally begin moving into my new place, I sat on the piano bench in front of the keys. I didn't play. I just sat there quietly for a while. I put my fingers on the keys and began to play my favorite show tune. A few notes in, I stopped. I felt my eyes sort of start to well up with tears. I mean, what was wrong with me? It was a piano. I sniffled hard and cleared my throat as I got up from the bench. All of a sudden, I heard the piano play itself, for the first time in weeks. It continued the song. I quickly sat back down, and Ellie and I began to play the song in harmony, one last time. After that, I never heard the piano play itself again. I got rid of it shortly after and moved into my new place. I still have a keyboard now that I play, and I still kept the skills and techniques I learned. I don't know if Ellie knows how much those makeshift lessons and music sessions meant to me, especially with what I was going through at the time. Every once in a while, I'll be playing a song, and I'll swear I hear a third harmony that I'm not playing. But to be honest, that really could be in my head. It's weird, you know? As I write this, it comes off as a ghost story. Something that initially should be feared, or something that would make people feel unsettled. But in thinking these events over in my mind, they fill me with a kind of peace in a strange way. Peace in what comes after, and what we leave behind. Peace that no matter how we leave this earth, the music, in one way or another, will forever remain.